who is but the form following the function of what, and what I am is a man in a mask. Welcome to Primary Technology, the show about the tech news that matters. Another huge show today. We have an M4 Mac Mini review. Jason has it in hand, so we're going to talk about that. Plus, Apple Vision Pro accessories, and the visionOS beta now has ultra-wide Mac screens. iOS 18.2 public beta with all the image tools. I played around with Image Wand. ChatGPT Search is now out, and it's actually pretty good. Apple acquired Pixelmator, and a ton more. This episode is brought to you by the Data Citizens Dialogues podcast and Audio Hijack, and members like you who support us directly. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Robles, and joining me, as always, is my good friend in the Apple Vision Pro. Just kidding, but he wears it more than everybody. Jason Aten. How's it going, Jason?
Good. You know, I bet you most of our listeners don't believe I actually even have one.
No,
because they've never actually seen me wear one. I just talk about using it all the time.
Didn't we?
But it is sitting right here. No, I never wore it on. I never wore it on there. Because I didn't get it at the same time. Oh, you might be right. Okay. Well, it's sitting right there. In case
we can't see it, but we believe you. we believe you. Someone said I needed to move the movie quote that we do every week back to the cold open, and so I think it feels right there. But I'm curious. Do you know what movie that quote was from?
You're gonna have to say it one more time because you said a lot of words.
I said a lot of words. I just kind of rattled them off, and now I closed the tab. And so when you open it
I think
again,
it's that.
No, hold on.
Okay.
I got it. Said, who is but the form following the function of what, and what I am is a man in a mask.
Ooh, the man. Okay, it's that Guy Fawkes movie with Natalie Portman and Hugo Weaving.
Yes, you're on the right track.
V for Vendetta.
Hey, you got it. That's the
mask part. If the mask was not in there, there's no chance. Zero chance I would know what those words were.
That is the most we're going to talk about the election on this podcast. Actually, I might even cut that out. Anyway, we have some 5-star review shout-outs to give, and then we're going to talk about the M4 Mac Mini. Jason, he would show it on camera, but he's using it right now to record. It's plugged in. It's jacked in.
That's true.
Yeah, don't hold it up while we record because then things are going to
I might hit the power button on the bottom.
Yeah, don't do that. We have 5-star reviews in Apple Podcasts from LPT0901 from the UK, Brandon Samples from the USA, I don't know what this is, but it's the Dudu Latala from Canada. Forgive me if that's actually a name and I mispronounced it. I'm so sorry. Dubs ZXN from Florida, fellow Floridian, what's up? And Dominant Hand Pocket or Dominant Pocket for the iPhone. None of these other reviews specified, so it's not like I'm washing away the other answers. I don't.
Yeah, right.
So I know. And I'm just saying, you can look at that podcast. And then Graph from the UK. Thank you for those 5-star reviews. Leave us a review there. We're a 4.9 star podcast because someone said Jason wasn't affable enough. So,
I don't know if that's exactly the reason why,
that wasn't
the
reason. That wasn't the reason. Someone gave us a 1-star review for something else. So anyway, we want to get up to a 5-star podcast once again, which is that's where we were for a while. So anyway, leave us a 5-star rating and review in Apple Podcasts. We'd appreciate it. And you get a shout out at the top of the show. Also, our last episode did numbers on YouTube. It has about 5,000 views right now and some funny comments. In last episode, you said, I forget if it must have been in the main episode. You said, we have a gymnast. Like you were talking about one of your kids. And so,
yeah, I don't think that's a controversial thing to say, but apparently the way I said it sounded like we have a gymnast. Like we've taken a gymnast.
Exactly. So Blue Keybo on YouTube was like, so what are your demands?
Yeah.
I thought of the line from the Avengers when Tony Stark says, we have a Hulk. He's talking to Loki in the tower. We have a gymnast. We have a Hulk. Yeah. So anyway, all right, let's get to it. Mac Mini M4, you have it in hand. You have a whole article reviewing it, and I'm going to link that in the show notes. Of course, you're probably going to publish it while we're speaking because we're recording before it's actually live. But tell me about it. What are the specs that you got? How's it been?
Yeah, the one that they sent me has the M4 Pro with 48 gigs of storage and then a 1 terabyte SSD. And
48 gigabytes of memory.
Yep.
Because that would not be a lot of storage.
I don't know what I said. It's the 48 gig 1 terabyte. Do I have to specify which?
There you go.
Our audience is smart; they'll figure it out. But yeah, I said
they got it.
And the reason I think I said it wrong is I literally was clicking the little Mac on it to check just to make sure I was saying the right amount of memory, because I was pretty sure it's 48, because the Pro starts at like 24, 40. It's weird because they're not the same. Like
no 32.
The M4 starts at 16 and then you can do 24 and then 36. And then this one is 32. Anyway, it's weird. So, and it's amazing. I wrote my takeaway is it's the most delightful new Mac I've reviewed in a long time. It's super powerful it's not just for its size, but period. It was faster than the M3 Max MacBook Pro, and it's faster than the M2 Ultra processor that's in the Mac Studio right now. It is absolutely ridiculous. I tried to put into this article Geekbench like the results, but it was like, nope, you can't do that. It didn't say, no, you can't do that, but the image just disappeared. But I have them right here. And I don't have, so I did get a MacBook Pro to review, but it's not an M4 Max MacBook Pro. So I can't speculate on the performance of that, except for that it's obviously going to be better. But other than the M4 Max processor right now, this Mac Mini with the M4 Pro is like the fastest thing Apple's ever made, right? In CPU performance. Right. GPU performance, the M2 Ultra and the M3 Max still smoke it pretty good, because they just have more GPU cores, right? Like a ton more cores. And so like in most GPU performances, it just scales parallel. Like it just continues to like scale it. If you add more, you can do twice as much, right? So, but it's kind of insane how fast this thing is, and how like I used it for all the things you would do on a computer, and then I listed a bunch of things that almost no one does on a computer, like match loudness and audition, record audio and audio hijack, color, Blackmagic Raw and DaVinci Resolve, all of these things. And it's pretty much amazing. I love using it. Really the only knocks that most people would say are the power button, which is dumb. It's not a problem. Like I'm never going to turn it off.
With the power button, because there was some speculation on this, can you hit the power button without lifting it? Like, can you reach around, or do you actually have to physically lift it to hit the power button? Don't actually turn it off right now.
Just try.
Record, please.
No, you can't. You would have to lift it a little bit. You'd have to have some super small fingers to get it underneath that lip. There's just no way. That's
people were already 3D printing like these little levers that would like attach to it, and then you could like.
There's not a whole lot of space there. Like I'm looking at it, and it's less than a half of an inch of clearance. So
right, it's not a lot. I mean, again, I don't think the only time I've had to use the power button on my Mac Studio was like in the hurricane, because the power was out and my APC battery died. Like that was then to turn it back on. That was it. Because you can program your Mac to shut down and turn on a schedule. You can have it to turn on automatically after a power outage, given, all the factors or whatever. But like I rarely ever touch it, so I don't think it's
Well, and I think you can also turn your Mac off from the Apple menu, right? You can just go to shutdown. Now you can't turn it on that way, obviously, because if it's off, there's no menu. So you'd have to like do that. But like I don't even my laptops. I almost never. I can't think of the last time I turned one of them off. The last time they even powered off was if they were restarting because of a software update, right? Like I don't know.
Curious, with MacBooks, I believe you can turn them on just by pressing any key. Like
unfortunately, that's true.
Right,
the most effective way to turn your MacBook on is to try to clean the keyboard.
Right, exactly. Can you turn on I don't know this, and you don't have to know this. I'm just curious. If you could turn on a desktop Mac by hitting the keyboard of something, I imagine it would have to be physically attached via USB. But I wonder if maybe that doesn't turn it on.
I'm almost positive the answer is no. I didn't test that, but because I don't care. But I did not. But I don't think it's true. I don't think you can do that. Sorry, I have to be more affable. I don't think that's true, but it's a great idea, Stephen.
We're going to change your title, The Affable and Gregarious.
Other affable guy.
Jason Aiden. I want to hear more about it. One question, though, because I'm looking at all the pictures in your review. Did you take these with your iPhone or like your big camera?
No, these are with the Nikon, with the Z6.
These are the nice camera, yeah. These are very nice photos. They're very moody. The problem is I had to do it this morning before the sun came up, because I needed photos as soon as the sun
whatever. And I just all of that looks like it's natural light is these Lume Cube panel LED things. So
well, it looks good.
Worked real well. Yeah, exactly.
Natural soft light. Another time, I don't know if we're going to get to it today, but we do have to talk about this stack of things next to the Mac Mini that's not even in like size order. You have your Scarlett 2i2 on top of a CalDigit dock, which is smaller. I don't know why those aren't flipped. And then, I don't know. We have to talk about
Well, the reason why is because of
Yes.
the cord pressure behind that CalDigit, that if it's on top, it just like tips backwards.
Oh,
So having it
okay.
on the bottom
Alright,
keeps
alright.
everything flush. That's literally the only reason. I like aesthetics. That stuff matters to me. But what you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
about me is I just do whatever's the most functional thing. I don't care. It's
Sure.
like this works. So, but
Okay.
I could have taken them out, but I didn't because I needed to show I put that photo right below, the part about the Blackmagic Raw and the isotope.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all that
yeah.
kind of
I
stuff.
get it.
So,
I get it.
anyway,
I
but
get
there
it.
is a problem with the
Yeah, I
Mac
know. Your
Mini.
article says there's one problem. What's the problem?
Okay, so did you know if you start with the base model Mac Mini, it's $599 and it has 16
Yes.
gigs of memory and a 256 gig SSD. And if you want to increase
Yes.
that 16 gigs to 32 gigs and you want to increase that SSD to 512, you can double both of those things, and the cost of it is $1,199. You could
Yes.
buy two base Mac Minis for $1,198. You would have the exact same amount of storage, the exact same amount of memory, and you'd save $1. And to me, that is preposterous, Stephen. That is completely bonkers.
That might be the first solid argument against Apple's tier pricing
It
that
is
I've heard, because that is
completely ridiculous that you could buy two whole Mac Minis for the same, and you'd keep $1 for the
And you
price
keep
of
$1.
upgrading.
So I'm going to do this right now live. So it's $599 base.
Yeah.
If you go
So
to
if you-
32 gigs memory, so doubling that and double the storage,
It's $1,199, which is $1 more than two Mac Minis would be.
that does feel like one of the more egregious. I mean, that's where
And-
listen, Apple makes its margins on memory and storage upgrades. Let's just be real.
But I
But
feel like
that's-
it's a little bit on a device. So on a Mac Studio where you're starting at $2,500,
Sure.
the pricing's the same. And I understand why the pricing is the same because whatever, the SSD.
Same chips. I mean, honestly,
They're
the
not
upgrade
gonna, they're not gonna discount it. But when you are starting at $599, and the thing is, if you bought a second Mac, I get it. People are gonna tell us storage and memory, they don't work that way. You can't buy two of them and have 32. It's
Yeah,
not,
but
it's not the
still.
same thing. But you'd also get a whole new processor, all that aluminum, another fan, more ports.
a second power button.
Yeah,
You could
another
put the second
power
one upside
button.
down. Put it right upside down like a
Exactly.
sandwich.
Oh yeah, you could stack them.
You can stack it and you got a
do
power
that.
button right at the top.
Don't do that. But anyway, I just feel like it is a little bit insulting
Mm.
when you start with this because I did write that this is the perfect computer if what you want to do is have some kind of weird server set up and throw this thing in your closet, Stephen. And it's,
exactly
it's
what I'm gonna
great. But it does feel especially egregious that it doubles the price if you're going to do
Yeah.
that. And I think Apple, my takeaway on that was Apple has some really smart people. I think they could figure out the math to sort of rationalize this a little bit without losing that much money, because you can buy a 1 terabyte SSD external, 1 terabyte of NVMe SSD, so internal,
Right.
from Crucial for $85. It would cost you $400 to upgrade that through Apple. To me, I feel like that's a lot of margin, and at some point it just feels like you're extracting rent from people, kind of. But all of that said, Mac Mini is amazing.
Yeah.
My final conclusion was even the base model for this computer with 16 gigs of memory and a 256 SSD is fantastic, and just spend the $85 on an external 1 terabyte drive and put all your stuff on that, and you'll be so happy, and this will last you forever.
Or just buy an Apple Vision Pro and you can use that as the monitor. Just kidding. Totally undo any money savings.
Of course, you don't get any extra RAM or
No,
storage if you do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Well, this is very exciting. I'm excited. Mine comes in tomorrow as we record. I got the base model, and the only thing I upgraded was the storage to 512 because, like you say in your article, I'm going to throw this in a closet. Actually, I'm going to throw it in my entertainment center, and I am going to connect it to my home theater receiver if I ever wanted to just pull up the Mac on the TV for whatever reason. I don't know. Some people I've seen were talking about this might be a good gaming option if there were actually games in Apple Arcade people want to play. We'll see. Connect a Bluetooth controller, you could do that. But I'm really excited because I'm going to do a video on it, but I have an Intel i7 Mac Mini in there, and this is going to be a massive upgrade. And honestly, I'm probably not going to notice any kind of speed difference, but just knowing it's Apple Silicon, and I do log into my iCloud account on that, and I don't know, I feel a little weird having the Intel Mac syncing some things, so I usually turn all the syncing off. So I don't know, maybe that's just...
I think you'll notice a speed difference, even the M4 base. So I also was sent, I haven't finished the reviews yet, but we can briefly talk about them if you want to. I have the M4 iMac with the Nano-Texture display, and then I also have an M4 MacBook Pro with a Nano-Texture display, which, by the way, Nano-Texture everything. Like...
Is that good?
It is so good, especially on a laptop.
Don't tell me that.
I'm telling you right now. And I'll just give away my takeaway is that if they upgrade the MacBook Air with the option for an OLED or mini LED display with Nano-Texture, they could double the price of the MacBook Air, and people will pay it. It'll be that worth it. It'll be so good.
Why? I'm hearing from you. I hear Gruber talk about this on the talk show. It's a $200 upgrade on the iMac.
It's $150 on the MacBook Pro.
Well, it's a bigger display.
I know. I'm just saying it is so. In fact, what was funny is I had it sitting on a desk, not here in my office, but I had it sitting on a desk that had some overhead lights and then a window behind it, and I just was using it. No big deal. And then I opened up my laptop, my MacBook Air, and I'm like, what is wrong with this screen? And I realized there was so many points of light hitting it that you didn't even see it all on the iMac, and it was fantastic.
But you have a keen eye. You're a photographer. You're looking at Apple Vision Pro OLEDs every day. Is it a noticeable difference when you look at, like, talking about color, saturation, contrast? Is it a noticeable loss?
I mean, no. Like, could a colorist tell? Maybe. I would say overall, the screen, the how do I differentiate this? Things like text and stuff, to me, they don't feel softer. Actually, I'm going to open it up right now. The Mac. I don't feel,
because that's the what I have heard is that the Nano-Texture, and like I've seen some videos. I've seen people when they, Apple actually had a little event in Los Angeles where they were showing off these Macs, and a bunch of influencers were there. And I see people doing the MacBook Pro side by side with the regular Glossy and then the Nano-Texture. And obviously the most obvious difference is the lack of glare, or basically it kind of diffuses the glare across the screen. So if you have a light, the glare, Nano-Texture really lessens that. But at least even in those videos, it does look like everything is slightly less saturated and contrasty. But I'm not sitting in front of it. So
I don't. So I think that the display, what it appears to, I mean, I'm looking at a random junk email that someone said, all the text is perfectly sharp. Like, it's perfectly sharp. It's just, does the whole thing have a slightly softer feel to it? Yes, but I don't want that to be, don't mistake that for less sharpness. It's a different variable. It's a different quality of the display that seems different compared to looking at a glossy display. Like if I look up at the studio display right now, it doesn't feel sharper. It just feels like glassier. I don't know. It's a hard thing to explain. I would buy it on everything. I didn't buy it on the studio display, but I'd put it on everything. It's fantastic. And I'm like, I edited photos this morning for my review. I did it on the studio display, but I would have had no problem doing it on a different display.
Did you get one of the Nano-Texture iPad Pros when those came out earlier this year?
No, but the joke is when I got an M4, I just put a Paperlight screen protector.
That's right. Oh man,
But the difference is this Nano-Texture goes all the way to the edge, unlike those iPads where there was actually a shiny, glossy bezel, and then there was a Nano-Texture display. On both the iMac and the MacBook Pro, it basically goes to the edge.
Wait, do you have the MacBook Pro? Is it connected to anything right now?
No, it's right here.
Can you just go to the desktop and show it on screen?
Yeah.
So our YouTube viewers can see. So if you're not watching, YouTube.
I'm just making sure there's nothing on my to-do list here. Hang on, let me just nuke this widget. There's a widget. It's hold on.
Leave 1-star review as anonymously on Apple Podcasts. So if you're not watching, youtube.com/@PrimaryTechShow. That link is in the show notes too if you want to see.
Yeah,
Jason's going to show them now too. Yeah, go ahead.
There you go.
So
there's even text on it, so you can see text.
So the very edge, something's happening with the vault.
I don't know why. It's because I nuked something and Outlook thought it needed to be
So
involved.
So the black bezel around the screen is also Nano-Texture. It's not
Yeah.
glossy.
Correct.
Oh, interesting.
I'm trying to hold this up.
No. I see it. I sees it. Okay, I sees it. I'll have to go. I'm gonna have to go
It
back
is
to the
so
Apple Store and
good.
check this out. You're gonna make me. I've always been leery of it. Maybe it's because I have the old matte screens in my head, which people who have been in the Apple world for more than 10 years will remember. You could get a MacBook Pro with a matte or glossy screen. Like, you just had that option, and then it went away for a long time, and now Nano-Texture is here. So I'll have to look at it again.
Now I have one more controversy about the MacBook Pro.
Oh.
I'm going to give away my review. I haven't said it yet.
Oh, okay.
Well, there was not a lot for me to write about because it's just an M4, and they sent me the base of base models. I think it has a 1 terabyte SSD, so they upgraded that.
Wait, did they send you the M4 or M4 Pro?
M4 MacBook Pro.
So they sent you a more powerful Mac Mini.
So here's the thing. I'll explain that in a second.
Okay.
But it's an M4 MacBook Pro with 16 gigs of memory.
Yeah.
And a 1 terabyte SSD, which I think the only reason they give you the 1 terabyte SSD is no one could even port. Like, you couldn't. They know that we couldn't. I couldn't even put my stuff on it if you didn't give me that. In fact, on this one, I don't even have my entire Dropbox downloading. I just have a couple of folders. But this M4 MacBook Pro that is 1/3 of a pound lighter than the M3 Max MacBook Pro. And there's only one way that's possible. There's less battery in this.
Battery, yeah.
But here's the thing. That means that they could have made the battery in the base level better. Like, they could have given it more battery life, but they wanted all of them to be the same. And obviously the M4 Pro and M4 Max require more battery, right? To get the same amount of performance. And I tried to figure it out. I'm like, well, the difference in the chip is like fractions of an ounce, right? Like nothing. And even the SSD,
the M4 Max isn't a pound heavier.
Well, the M3 Max, but yes, it's not like a third of a pound heavier.
No, M4 Max. Excuse me, M4 Max.
Well, I'm just saying I was weighing it comparing to an M3 Max, right? Because I have one of those sitting here, and so I put it on a postal, like on a scale, like a postal scale or whatever, and it was like a third of a pound heavier. And I think the only way to explain that is battery. Battery is the only dense enough thing in there to make that much of a difference. And I feel like, why didn't you just fill this thing with battery? Make it the same weight. Nobody buying a MacBook Pro is complaining about a third of a pound, right?
Is Thunderbolt 5 heavier?
Definitely. Ports? All that data is so heavy.
The data's, listen, I got a lot of photos on my phone. It gets pretty heavy. No,
but they could have given it so much battery life.
So what's the weight difference?
It was like a third of a pound.
It's kind of significant, actually.
It's noticeable. Like, I kept picking them up, and I'm like, I can't pick up the M3 Max right now because it's literally just serving as
holding
a
your
stand
phone.
for my iPhone. That's all it's doing. It's not even on. It's actually been wiped. But anyway,
that is interesting. That is kind of a shame. Then, yeah, they could have made that kind of like a battery monster if they would have shoved more battery running an M4. That's scary.
But I don't think they wanted to have to explain why the M4 gets more battery than the other ones, because it's like, wait, I'm paying more money for this M4 Max and I get less battery life, and so but I'm like, why are you artificially reducing this thing that could just last for days?
That is true. I will tell you, I'm going to be tempted if and when the M4 MacBook Air comes out, because I've been taking stock in my thing. I have my M3 Pro MacBook Pro, and I had no reason to upgrade to an M4 anything MacBook Pro, so I'm like, I'm just not gonna do that. But one of the reasons why I kept it, and maybe you can answer this too, the SD card slot, which, correction from last week, I said the previous Mac Mini had an SD card slot. That was false. There's not been an SD card slot in the Mac Mini, so just kidding. Nope, you didn't lose anything with the new one. But I kept the MacBook Pro over the Air because of the SD card slot. And as I continue to think about it, I haven't used that SD card slot, I don't know, like the whole time I've had it. Like, I wanted it because, like, well, if I bring my camera in, I record a thing, I want to put it in there, but I don't do that. I actually, anytime I'm away from the studio, I film with my iPhone now, so it doesn't matter. So the SD card slot doesn't matter to me personally, but the display on the MacBook Pros, which is the Pro Motion display and all that, compared to the MacBook Air, I know you used a MacBook Air kind of interchangeably. Like, is it noticeable to you? Like, do you feel like,
Yeah, the MacBook Pro is the best display Apple's ever made. Like, it just is so good. It's better than the Studio Display. I would argue in some ways it's better than the XDR just because it's on a laptop and you can take it with you and stuff. And it's
it has a higher refresh rate,
and
right?
it's not $6,000.
Right. Well, and the MacBook Pro has promotion. Right?
Yep, you're right.
So, and the XDR doesn't even have that.
Right. And I mean, I don't ever notice that on my Studio Display, so I guess I don't care about that as much. But all that's to say, the display is noticeably better, especially like I watched Interstellar the other day. Don't ask why, it's just reasons.
No, you don't need a reason. You can watch that any time of day, whenever
I had to
you
explain
want.
black holes to my son, and so I watched Interstellar because, of course, that's how you would do that.
You've been a good father. Well done.
Yeah, anyway. So, but I was watching part of it on my MacBook Pro, and it's just, I mean, having basically... It's not an OLED, but it's as close as you're going to get until they put an OLED on there to have that deep black, whatever.
Yeah.
It's so good. Now, that said, if you're comparing them side by side, the MacBook Pro display is significantly better, but the MacBook Air display is not bad. It's fine. It's totally fine for all of the things. Even if you're going to do video editing and stuff, it's all fine. Like it's there's nothing wrong with it. It's not ProMotion. Fine.
That's fine. I'm looking at the Pro Display XDR tech spec page. Yeah, and it's 60 hertz too. It's not even like 90 hertz or whatever. I'm wondering if
that is the worst. That is even worse than what I just said about pricing. That thing is $5,000
without a
stand. Without a stand.
And if you want Nano-Texture on that, it's another $1,000.
Steven,
I mean,
what is even happening? It makes me think differently about the people I knew that bought one of these. And now at the time there was no Studio Display, but still.
Right. But also the fact that this came out in 2019 with the updated Mac Pro. So this display is over 5 years old. Price is unchanged. I mean, this is classic Apple. Like, price is unchanged. Features unchanged. That's it. That's it. And, wow. I mean, I'm not tempted by this anymore. I was when it first came out, but I couldn't afford it back in 2019 anyways. But now the Studio Display is so good. But now I'm like, maybe I should get a Nano-Texture Studio Display. Sell this one.
I will say, hold on. I will just say,
yes,
the Studio Display overall is a little bit overpriced. And so I don't know that it's worth buying another one with Nano-Texture. I don't know.
No, I probably wouldn't do that. I mean, yes, but it's also a great display. Like,
sure.
In my tech world, when I have the ability to buy something where once I have it, I'd never have to think about it again. When I have the option to do that, I do that. And like, for instance, microphone-wise, this is my podcast mic, the Earthworks Ethos. I have the mic I record videos with. It's the Sennheiser MKH416. It's a $1,000 microphone. And I never wanted to spend that much on a microphone. I had plenty of other mics. And I just kept seeing other people talk about, like, if you buy this mic, you never have to think about mics again. And I didn't realize, like, what that felt like. Sure. And when I got this maybe 2 years ago, and it is a nice feeling to think I never have to even look up or think about microphones again, because, like, it is just the perfect mic, and I never have to do anything about it. And so the Studio Display is also that for me. Like, when I got this, I had the LG Ultrafine, which, whatever, fine display. But when I got the Studio Display, it was like, I'm good. Like, I'm totally good. Like, this is exactly what I need, and I don't have to think about it. It's the great size. So anyway, there's something to be said, I think, about
I mean, the only downside is there's like a little baby iPhone in there, which is going to someday die, and it's going to prematurely. But think about it. Like, hold on. The argument against the iMac has always been, yeah, but what about when the computer dies and you wanted to just use it as a display? But what happens when you buy a display in the little tiny computer and it dies and you can't just keep using it as a display?
I mean, listen, the iPhone.
I'm not wrong.
I have an iPad 2nd generation in the closet that if I plug it in, I could still use it just fine. And that thing the iPad came out 2011?
You could use it just fine, but you can't update any of the software on it. And you probably can't use half of the apps anymore.
What software does my display? I understand there's software that updates, but I mean, if this software just stays
I was talking about the iPad. I'm just saying.
Oh,
like,
no,
I agree
iPad,
with you. Yeah. It's a fantastic display. I agree with you. I'm just saying it's weird to me that they put a thing in there that could prematurely, like, because this is the same display they've been using literally for what, since the 2015 iMacs, maybe the 27-inch iMacs. Like, it's the same exact panel. It works amazing. It's fantastic.
It's great. And the webcam's fine. Don't at me. It's fine. I saw somebody asking about the studio display on Mastodon, and they were like, "Oh, but the webcam is fine. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, the webcam on the Mac Mini is really good, actually.
On that note,
it's much better than the power button. Let me say that.
One of the few sarcastic moments from Jason A10. I want to talk about, we have Apple Vision Pro accessories that came out. Jason actually has some in hand, and so we're going to show them on screen. But before we do, I want to thank one of our sponsors for today, which is the Data Citizens Dialogues podcast. I mentioned this on last week's episode. So fun to have a podcast sponsor another podcast. I feel like that's kind of like an ideal thing. But the Data Citizens Dialogues podcast. If you listen to this show, you're probably interested in data, whether it's data management, data security, data privacy. And if you're interested in data, then you need to check out the Data Citizens Dialogues podcast. The link will be in the show notes. It's a forward-thinking show brought to you by the folks over at Calibra, the leader in data intelligence. You'll hear firsthand from industry titans, innovators, and executives from some of the world's largest companies as they dive into the hottest topics in data. You get insight from popular staples such as AI governance and data sharing down to more nuanced questions like how do we ensure data readability at a global scale. And so I've actually been listening. I listened to their latest episode, which just came out yesterday as we were recording this podcast, and it was with Jordan Galvin talking about data governance, laws having to do with data, how that affects companies, and how they manage data, privacy and security. Super interesting, and I think if you listen to this show, you'll love that show as well. And so while data may be shaping our world, Data Citizens Dialogues is shaping the conversation. So follow Data Citizens Dialogues on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. And I'll put this link in the show notes where you can just click Apple Podcast, Spotify, RSS, YouTube, wherever you'd like to listen. Data Citizens Dialogues podcast. Thank you for sponsoring this episode. All right, Apple Vision Pro. You still use it every day?
Every day. I have not used it yet today, but I was busy this morning.
You were busy. Did you publish your M4 Mac Mini review?
You just reminded me. I probably should.
I just got a notification that MKBHD's video went live.
Okay, well then I'm safe.
Before we started recording, we were talking about embargoes lifting, and I don't know. I'm trying to think. I've had an embargo, but not for an Apple product before. But it is one of those things where, like, you look at the time, you look at the date, you want to be very sure. But to be really, really sure, it's nice to know someone else published too. And, so the MKBHD review just went live because I got a notification. And, we'll put that. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of others that go live. Here, let's go look at my YouTube homepage and see what is live. Here is, we got the, MKBHD made himself a miniature version of himself next to the Mac Mini. So there you go.
Because you do that.
It's got 13,000 views already in the first 6 minutes. It's ridiculous.
How many? Anyway. How long do you have to watch to count as a view? 8 seconds. Is that what they count as a view?
8
nowadays?
or 10 seconds or whatever. I mean, he's just got another one from me right now. Yeah. Anyway, he's unboxing the M4 Mac Mini. There you go. I'll put a link to his video, but you should go read Jason's article first about the M4 Mac.
Please
Mini.
Do it.
Definitely do that first.
Send it to all your friends.
All right, you have some embargoed Apple Vision Pro accessories, and we're gonna fight to the death about which of these cases are better. No, I'm just kidding. We're not gonna do that.
We don't have to fight. You can win if it makes you feel better. I don't.
No, it's fine. It's fine. The first one, which I think is interesting, and this was already shown. I don't know. It's already on Apple's website. You can buy it, so there's no embargo. And I saw this around social media, but Belkin, who made one of the first third-party accessory for Apple Vision Pro, which was the battery belt clip, which I bought, and it's sitting here in a drawer. There's the Belkin battery belt clip, which I have not used since I bought it, and I think it cost like $40. But anyway, there's now a Belkin head strap for Apple Vision Pro, and curiously, this is like to be used with the Solo Knit strap to go over the head, as though Apple were admitting to have this be comfortable for long periods of time, you should really have that head strap on top. And while they include the dual strap in with the Apple Vision Pro when you buy it, if you like the Solo Knit, which I personally do prefer the Solo Knit strap, now you can actually get another strap, the Belkin, now to go on top of it. And you have this in hand?
I have it right here, and I haven't actually used it, but it's right here.
Wow.
It's in a box.
I was about to ask you how it was, but
it's here's the thing. I use the dual strap already. So this is really designed for people who want to use the solo thing, right? And which I guess is more comfortable behind your head right? But the problem with it is
Yeah.
like you had to tighten it so much
gotta
that
tighten
you
it a
feel
lot.
like your head is like in a crucible or whatever. It's real uncomfortable.
Is it Crucible or is it Stocks? I thought a Crucible was
It's a bad situation, whatever it is. Can we just agree? Like,
yeah, sure.
It's an unfortunate way to wear a headset. That
The
you're going to
Crucible's a
wanna use.
novel. That's a novel.
The Crucible is the thing that you put something in and you grind it. Actually,
Oh, yeah. Okay, this is getting higher than PG rated. So that's the head strap. Jason has to try it. I might actually get it. I did try. There was another third-party head strap, but it was like a hard plastic one. I talked about it on a previous episode. I returned that because it wasn't very comfortable. So I'm curious to try this Belkin one. But you also have a case for the Apple Vision Pro, and this is going to be Apple selling it. The Belkin case. Oh my goodness!
I have an Apple Vision Pro lunchbox right here,
It does look like.
and
Oh,
it does do
let me see.
2 things that I like.
Okay.
Besides being half the size of the Apple one,
Right.
but it's got a little connector up, a little pouch up here for the battery, so the battery's not just like free riding in there. And then it has a little. You can see there's a little protector for the lenses. So there's a little that little piece folds up and it kind of like fits perfectly in where the lenses are to
That is
keep that
nice.
protected as well. It's got a couple other pockets. I don't really know what you would do with them. Maybe put your
put the
Mac Mini.
charger.
Maybe
Your
put your Mac
charger?
Mini in there so that if you want to use it on a plane.
As
Should
a
I do
headless-
that? Should I take a Mac Mini on the plane next week?
Please do that. Just set up your little Mac Mini on the tray table, plug it into power, Apple Vision Pro.
What if
headless
I
Mac
just
Mini.
don't plug it into power but set it there because no one else will know? Right? No one else would have any idea.
Well, here's my question. Have you used it on a plane yet, the Apple Vision Pro?
I've never used it on a plane.
Jason, what are you doing? That's like one of the best use cases. That's like the one universally accepted use case to say Apple Vision Pro is great on a plane.
Ah, man.
Just
People
do
really
it.
People really do that?
You're up there in first class anyway. No one's looking at you.
I mean, not flying to Portugal, I'm not going to be in first class.
Oh,
Just
you have
to
a
be
long-
clear.
You have a long flight. Take it in the Belkin case and use it on the plane,
I'm
Jason.
flying directly from Boston to Portugal, so yeah.
You should do it. Anyway, it's a cool case. I have the Waterfield Apple Vision Pro case. They sent me this early on, and I really like the compact nature of this, and it actually fits in my backpack. So, are you going to take it with you to Portugal at all?
I wasn't going to, but actually, now that I have this little tiny case, I might.
I think you should. And
Yeah.
for science.
For science and for, the podcast.
For
Really.
yes, for the podcast, more importantly.
For the podcast.
I said I was going to put in the visionOS 2.2 beta on mine to try the ultra widescreen Mac thing, but I hadn't got a chance yet. So, but if you do the visionOS 2.2 beta, it's upgraded the resolution when you connect it to a Mac, and there's now wide and ultra wide modes. And have you tried this yet? Have you done that?
Not yet. I have not put that beta. I depend so much on my Vision Pro because I use it every day that I can't.
I can't tell if you're being joking.
No,
right
I'm
now.
totally joking.
Okay, I was gonna say, I know you use it every day, but I think it's like that. Key.
No one depends on their Vision Pro that much that they can't put the beta on it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do it, but I'll have to charge it up. But anyway, you can do the ultra wide Mac display, and I'm curious. I've not tried this. If you can, I know in the Control Center on Apple Vision Pro, you can basically do the Mac mirroring, like you can trigger it from there. I'm curious if I can trigger it with a headless Mac Mini, which is how mine will be. And if you're not familiar, that just means that there's no monitor actually attached to it. I'm curious if I'll be able to do that with the Vision Pro. So, typically I've gotten these little like weird HDMI dongles that like tell the Mac it's connected to a 4K display. So if you screen share, you get a 4K, display. Because otherwise, sometimes it'll just give you this like really small screen thing if there's no monitor plugged in. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. I'm gonna try it out. I also want to talk about iOS 18.2. The public beta is out if you want to try that. Some people are still waiting for Image Playgrounds, which, I don't know how much you're missing. But I will say I finally did a video going through some of the features, and I'll put this in the show notes. But one of the features in the latest beta was Magic Wand. I said Magic Wand throughout the entire video and then realized that was wrong. It is called the Image Wand, where you can use the Apple Pencil, circle things, at least it works in Apple Notes right now, and it will just create images of whatever the text is. So if you do this like in an Apple Note right now on the beta, it'll just pull like random text. And so this was a note where I was just testing things, and it like pulled Hanging Gardens of Babylon, podcast microphone, and something else. It made like a medieval looking microphone, which was not helpful. But you can also select text, and then in that contextual menu, which can we just say is getting very, very long now? Like when you select text now on an iPad or iPhone, you could tap that right arrow, and you got like cut, copy, paste, look up. Now you got writing tools. You have translate. You and undo, and now you have generate or create image. Like it's a very long contextual menu.
It's almost as bad as trying to find something to watch on Netflix. You just have to keep going down rabbit holes.
I feel like they should change that to the like a vertical contextual menu, right? I mean, wouldn't that make sense?
Or maybe if you could just tap on it and tell the assistant what you want to do.
I mean, look at this. This is the contextual menu right now. You got find, selection, look up, translate, search, web, speak, share,
and there's an arrow there.
There's an arrow, but they're so small, it's so hard to tap. But anyway, so what you can do now in 18.2, if you have image playgrounds and access to the image generation, when you select text in Apple Notes, and this should be coming to the iWork suite, like Pages, Numbers, and Keynote later, you can tap Create Image, and it will just generate an image from the text that you had selected. And so that's what I did here. The images are all like this kind of comic booky illustration. You cannot get a photorealistic image from Apple's image generation. Like it just will not do photorealistic anything, and it won't do people. I asked him multiple times to try and do different people, and it just refuses. Like it shows you this error. It says images involving people are not supported. So Apple is being very careful not to do that. Which means I couldn't. Oh, I also I uploaded a picture of Chance Miller from 9 to 5 Mac. I trolled him in the video.
As a 12-year-old is basically.
I said it de-aged him, and Zach was like, "That's a burn." I was like, "What? Obviously, that is a de-aged thing. Like, what more?" Anyway, but an interesting part of the ChatGPT integration, if you start a command with use ChatGPT. So if you tell the voice assistant on your phone, using ChatGPT, generate an image, blah, 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 it will do a photorealistic image because it's actually an image generated by ChatGPT. And so this one, I can get it directly just by asking the voice assistant on my iPhone, or you can do this, using a prompt, but that's ChatGPT doing it, not Apple Intelligence. And you can see the little ChatGPT thing at the bottom. And that's how I got this. I got a medieval knight riding a polar bear, which honestly is the best thing that I've gotten so far from any image generator. I thought that was great. But anyway, so the best thing about Apple Intelligence is the ChatGPT integration is what I'm saying.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
I mean, would you, because you have it. Are you sending Genmoji?
No, well, sometimes my son, who only has an Apple Watch, like he's a text aficionado, he's just an addict. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. And he's actually pretty smart. Most of his responses don't sound anything like him, and we figured out that that's because he just taps whatever the prompt is as a response. So you'll be like, "Hey, could you make sure the garage door is shut?" And his response will be like, "Of course, I'd be happy to." I'm like, "You're 10." 10-year-olds don't respond like that. Like, never. Or we're like, "Hey, we're headed home. We were at a banquet last night." And his response is like, "Please drive safe." And we're like,
"Please drive safe."
He doesn't care.
No kid says that.
Anyway, so it's funny. But anyway, he'll send things and whatever. So I have made a habit of, to him, sending him back Genmoji because he thinks it's very cool. So he'll be like, "I love you so much." And so, or I think he said, "I love you forever." So I made a Genmoji of a heart with an infinity sign in the middle of it. And so he thought that was very cool.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
okay,
so
that's pretty good.
That. And then the kids have really enjoyed having their photos made in image playgrounds, right? Yeah. And none of them look anything like them. Although they kind of do. It'll hit certain characteristics. And it's actually horrifying when you make them enough of like yourself and you're like, "Is this what the world thinks I look like?"
See, that's the thing. I kept saying horrifying and people were like, "They're not horrifying." Listen, I've had several of these images. Like they're just... I mean, this is actually of Whitney's grandfather.
I was like, "That's definitely not you, Stephen."
No, that is not me. But even my kids,
that's Harry Winkler, isn't it?
my son's image actually looks pretty good. It looks somewhat like him, but
he looks like Hans from Frozen.
Oh yeah, a little bit Hansian. I just don't. I mean, I get it. I should give it a more recent picture. anyway because it thinks I have more hair than I do. It's fine. Now, you want to talk about notification summaries, and I do think I've had increasingly bad experiences with it, but tell me about yours first.
I don't understand why everyone likes it so much. That's the thing. I don't understand.
Because they're funny? Because they're funny?
Yeah, but they're super not useful in a lot of scenarios. They are good at a couple things. So, for example, I have the New York Times app, and I get about 45 notifications, especially this week, a day per hour. Like, it's just insane. And it'll just it'll summarize. It'll be like, Donald Trump won Michigan, Kamala Harris to concede for something else, the oil refinery fire in Louisiana. Those things are not related, but it's good because I know that if I tap on it, I'm going to see those things. I knew we weren't going to talk about the election, but those were like the most recent notifications on here.
I'll let it slide.
Appreciate it. So that's great. But it sort of assumes that all notification types from a given type of app are of the same type, which, if you think about that from email, is very much not the case. And what it does that I don't like is it shows you who the most recent email is from. Right. And then it summarizes like 4 emails, none of which came from that person necessarily. Right. And I don't, it's like, this is not in any way useful. So I've actually turned it off for email completely because it is completely not helpful for emails at all. It would be fine if it showed me a notification and summarized like what what it does in the mail app. That's fine. Those types of things are useful. So I've had to turn it off completely for that. I've also had to turn it off for other types of apps that like, I don't know why I had notifications on them for anyway. Like, it's just, there are some things that are just very strange because it doesn't understand the context of like, what was this app? It's just looking at text and groups of text and trying to summarize it into one thing. I feel like for messages, it's less terrible, right? Because it'll be like your kid texted you about this and someone else texted you about this other thing or something.
Well, the issue that I ran into, and you can turn off summaries per app in case you're wondering.
And I suggest you do that.
I suggest you do. So last week, I was going to record a podcast with a guy. He asked me to be on as a guest. And right before we were going to record, he emailed me and he said, I just spilled a bunch of stuff on my desk. I don't know what's happening. I need to postpone the recording. I said, no problem. And when I got that email last week, the summary said, equipment issue, reschedule. Like, that was the summary. And I was like, not bad. I mean, that's what happened. Yesterday, I think it was, or earlier this week, was when we had rescheduled the recording for. I got an email from him. He was just reminding me, like, hey, just so you know, remember, like, we were recording. The mail summary, it looks at the entire thread rather than just the latest message. So the summary of the mail said, equipment issue, need to reschedule. And I was like, it happened again? Like 2 weeks in a row? And when I opened the email, I realized he was just confirming again. But the summary was pulling from the whole email chain. And that immediately is like, I feel like Apple needs to change that to say only summarize maybe from like today's emails, but don't summarize the whole chain, because I have email chains that will, maybe several weeks long. Right. Like, I'll talk to like sponsors back and forth. Maybe we're like doing a brand, whatever. And to summarize an entire email chain in one line, you're going to get some bad information. It's just not going to be summarized well. And so when I saw that yesterday, I was like, okay, this is not great. Like, this needs to be adjusted to just look at maybe the last message, like only summarize the last message, like the new message, the unread one, not the entire chain. So,
or give context. It's like recording, confirming recording, previous recording rescheduled due to equipment issues. That would be fine, right? Like, you would understand. Right. My favorite though is the Google Home app. We have the front. We have our backyard camera and our front yard camera, or not our front yard camera, but we have a front camera that will notify us if it sees people, right?
Yes.
And so yesterday, I should have screenshotted this. It's one of my great regrets in life that I didn't. There was a notification that pops up and it says multiple people seen in backyard and foyer. It's like, are we being invaded? What is actually happening? And it just meant that there was 3 notifications throughout the day that had said person seen in backyard, and it was me walking out to my office, right? But the notification summary is like multiple people in backyard and front foyer, and it's like the cavalry is here. It's over. We're done.
One of my most proud I'm most proud of this joke that I made the other day, because someone posted an Amazon notification summary, and it says package is 8 stops away, delivered, and will be delivered tomorrow. And I said Schrodinger's package.
Exactly.
And I was so happy that I made that joke, and I didn't see anybody else make it first. But that is like, I will, because I have all the smart home things, and I have lots of notifications. And one of the annoying parts of like the garage is I do want to get notified when the garage door opens and closes. Sometimes that happens a lot. Like if my kids are going in and out or loading the car, and so I'll get a notification summary, and it says garage state has changed multiple times. And it's like, yeah,
it's in Georgia now.
It is both open and closed. Schrodinger's garage. And I feel like maybe Apple Intelligence could be tweaked to say, like, give me the last state, like, because that's really what's important. Like, garage, multiple chains, open and closed multiple times, is now closed or it is now open. Like, that would be more helpful tweak. But
I almost think maybe Apple could make some kind of an API for developers for notification types where a subsequent notification is essentially overriding a previous notification, right? Because you don't need it to say, I don't need it to tell me, and there are some maybe you do want to know, but like, I don't need to know that there was a notification summary that 7 people rang the doorbell today, especially if it's going to say there are 7 people at the front door. Like,
there's a group of people at the front door, back door, and on the side.
Stephen, be honest.
Invasion.
In our day and time, there's never a time when there are 7 people at our front door. Literally, not even if we were having a Christmas party, they wouldn't all show up at the same time. So in this day, like the world we live in today, if you got a notification and there were actually 7 people on your front, you would be you'd be in the basement. Well, you don't even have a basement. You would be so. It's like the Purge. That's literally, it's the Purge. It's the plot of the Purge.
They should Apple should just summarize it to just say, you are surrounded. You're surrounded. The show's over.
Man, for like April Fools or for Halloween, one of these vendors should have been like, the Purge just started.
You're under siege. You're under siege. Anyway, yeah, it's just got to be tweaked. I should probably turn it off because I have summaries turned on for every application.
Nope.
And I've
turned it off for a lot of things.
Yeah, I had an Instacart the other day, and there were like, those summaries weren't helpful. It was like, tomatoes, we have and don't have tomatoes, and yes, tomatoes. It's like,
yeah,
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's Apple Intelligence. We have to talk about ChatGPT Search because it was a huge thing that they announced months ago, and now it is actually live and you can use it. But before we do, I want to thank our second and final sponsor, which is, they're just one of my favorites. It's Audio Hijack by Rogue Amoeba. We're using it right now. You listening to our voices right now is thanks to Audio Hijack. It's how we record this podcast. It's how I record the audio for all of my videos. It's just an incredibly powerful tool. If you do anything with audio on your Mac, recording it, routing it, Audio Hijack is the way to go. Now, they've been sponsoring for a number of weeks, and so I'm going to share something different this time, which is their brand new blocks, which if you weren't familiar with Audio Hijack, it's so user-friendly. You can basically just drag blocks, like building blocks, and you make a signal chain, and you can say, here's my input device, a USB mic. I want you to run that through a compressor. There's blocks for that, or EQ. Give me the little levels meters, and then record it to whatever format you would like. You can even record it to multiple formats. Well, now they have new blocks, including you have Magic Boost, which will boost the audio on an input or a signal. There's the mixer block, parametric EQ, but also they even have, I don't even know if you knew this, Jason.
I did
They have
not.
a transcribe block. Did you know this?
I did not know that.
They have a transcribe block.
Hang on, let me add it real quick to my little.
No, don't change it. Don't touch it right now. Wait till we're done. Wait till we're done. But you can add a transcribe block, and with the magic of Audio Hijack, you can have that include multiple channels. So, like, you can have, your audio input. I can put an app, so like the web browser that me and Jason are talking through, and have those combine into a transcribe block and get a full transcription of this podcast. Like, I'm actually going to do this after we're done recording because that would actually be really helpful where I can run that through like ChatGPT and stuff. Amazing. This is the power of Audio Hijack. Plus, look, they're always updating their blocks. It's just amazing. So here's what you do. You go to macaudio.com/primarytech, and you can get 20% off Audio Hijack or any of their bundles with the promo code TechXX. All one word, TechXX. Go to macaudio.com/primarytech. That link is just in the show notes. Just go there and click it. If you've never tried it, you have to try Audio Hijack. We just love it. Can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, it's so easy that I had to set it up on this Mac Mini this
Right.
as we were getting ready to record.
Right.
And if you just heard me say that, then it worked because that's how we're recording this. If you didn't hear any of this, then it didn't work. But it was super easy. I just dropped them in there and we're good to go.
It's amazing. So try it. MacAudio.com/primarytech. Link is in the show notes. Our very gracious thanks to Audio Hijack and Rogue Amoeba for sponsoring this episode. Now, ChatGPT Search is a thing, which they also just bought the domain chat.com for like millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Maybe that's worth it. I don't know. You can now just go to chat.com and get ChatGPT. But so ChatGPT Search is out. Now, I feel like when this was announced months ago, there was a lot of fanfare, like GPT Search or Search GPT is going to be a big thing. And it almost felt like it was going to be a different application or like a different place to go. And now that it's out, it was kind of just I don't know, it feels like minimal fanfare. It's kind of just snuck out there. But it's live, and if you use the ChatGPT app or if you go to the website, there's just a little search icon now. I'm going to share my ChatGPT window here, and you'll see there's just a little search icon, and you can click that, and whatever your prompt is afterwards, it's going to search the internet, and it's going to give you an answer. And honestly, it's been pretty good. Like I just asked it, what is the Primary Technology podcast? And with the little search thing enabled, immediately gave me primarytech.fm, which is our website, and then gave me a little summary, which is based on the podcast description, which is great. And they even included links to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music for the show, and they all work. I can click Apple Podcasts, and it brings me to our show page in Apple Podcasts, and the same with Spotify. And then it has a little sources thing at the bottom. And so for web searches, honestly, it has been very good. But what has been your experience with it?
Yeah, I think it's very good. I was formulating an idea and I realized I should finish that thought because people expect me to be contrarian. But no, it's very good.
Yes.
I'm gonna write more about this, so I don't want to give away too much of it at this point. But I do think there's a reason that Google's very nervous about this, and I think that they should be, because just think about all of the bad things that exist with Google's search, and basically none of them exist with this. And and in fact, I feel like you can be in the ChatGPT app doing a web search and it does a better job of getting you to links than Google does, because Google just wants to send you those AI summaries and it starts to push links down. I did quite a few of these just to play around with it, because I sincerely, like, my thought is that it's could replace Google search for me personally. The only downside to it, Google search is actually much more, I don't know if open is the right word, than we think, but like you can basically search for anything. Maybe not exactly anything, but the boundaries are pretty like far out there in terms of what you can search for in Google search. But with ChatGPT, you couldn't even search for the election results. Like if you tried to search, I typed in, I don't even know, I just typed in the word election results and it just says, I may not have the latest updates, visit the AP, blah, 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 blah. Then I just typed in like who won the presidential election, and it started to try to answer that. And then it stopped and it replaced that text with, I may not have the latest updates for more. So they're definitely putting some boundaries on some things. And maybe that's just because it's so new that they weren't sure how it would respond and they didn't want to overload it or whatever. But then I just typed in the word Lions, right? Our hometown football team. And it's like, they're currently leading the NFC North with a 7-1 record. They just defeated the Green Bay Packers 24-14, making it their third consecutive win at that venue. Even after Aiden Hutchinson's season-ending injury, the Lions acquired blah, blah, blah. Like it was good. It knew way more about the Lions than you do. Like it was, which is, I know, a low bar because you don't watch sports or anything like that. But it had their upcoming schedule, and then it shows you all the sources. I think it's, I mean, this, and honestly, this is more useful than just typing random stuff to ChatGPT. Like the ability to actually do the searches and have it, and I like the way that it presents it a lot better. So I think Google, this is, I think one of the, I'm waiting for some smarter people to chime in on this, but I think that this is could represent an existential threat to Google. I mean, because Google is like, just think about how much money they print based on Google search.
Right.
It is absurd. It is like the most brilliant business idea in the history of the world. And
It
I
is
think
their business. Isn't it like 90% of their revenue?
Yeah, and I'm just saying it's the best business idea anyone ever came up with. Like, organize the web, spend $1 trillion, not really, but spend a bunch of money organizing the web, crawling it, making an index, serving that up to people. Don't charge them, just sell ads. It's the best ad business. It is the biggest ad business in the world. So
Right.
this could be, yeah.
And I'm looking, I searched Google for what is the percentage of the revenue? I got an AI overview. I don't know how much to trust that, but it says Google's advertising revenue was about 78% of its total revenue. Search ads are the primary source from Google Search, which accounted for about 57% of Google's total revenue. So not 90%, but still very high percent of the revenue. And I was trying to help my mom with her 2018 RAV4. Her infotainment system like froze and is now on a boot loop. And so I was searching feverishly last week to try and figure it out. So I just asked ChatGPT. And first of all, it started by saying, I'm sorry to hear you're experiencing issues with your 2018 Toyota RAV4's infotainment system. So listen, Google doesn't tell me they're sorry. I appreciate ChatGPT trying to empathize with my issue. And it gives me some solutions here, which I ran across all these and none of them worked. But it did give me a source to go to like Toyota's page or whatever, which even that I have struggled to get to with Google last week. I had to, really go down and search for it. But I'm going to try it for more things and see what happens.
Well, and just you commented that like, oh, well, 80% or whatever the number is not that much, but it's
still huge.
80% of whatever, like $305 billion is a whole lot of money. Really, the only things that are left after Google's ad business is Google Cloud and people who subscribe to like Google Workspace, right? Like for business. And I promise you, neither of those things would exist if it wasn't for Google Search, because that's where all the money came from to build Gmail and to build Google Cloud.
Although I will say, I'm curious, they break down, maybe I could search for this real quick, between YouTube ad revenue and Google Search ad revenue. Like, let's see, Google Search ad revenue versus YouTube ad revenue. Because they just said ad revenue total. It seems like Google Search and other revenue increased, and I have to represent. Okay, that's not really telling me. Again, Google Search.
Well, I think YouTube's ad revenue is roughly 10 to 15% of Google Search. So I think the way it breaks down is like roughly $30-ish billion for YouTube advertising versus like 170 or something like that for Google Search. I could be wrong.
Well, I'll tell you what. I just used the ChatGPT search option. Here's what I got. It says in last year, Google's total advertising revenue was approximately $237 billion. Gives a reference to Statista. How do you say that?
I would say Statista.
Statista, yeah. Of this, Google search ads generated about $175 billion, accounting for roughly 73% of the revenue. Yahoo Finance. YouTube ads contributed $31 billion, representing 13% of total ad revenue. Yeah. So it
was roughly right on the numbers, just not the percentages, because I can't do math in my head on a podcast.
Right. But so I just did this I literally copy and pasted what I put into Google and then put it into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT gave me a better answer.
Nice.
I just sneezed. Sorry. I muted it in the video, so no problem. But anyway, yeah, so I'm going to be using it more often, and I think it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Pretty good. All right, a couple quick things, then we're going to get to a personal tech, which is you actually bought a 3-in-1 charger.
Well, can I say one thing about the chat.com thing?
Oh, yeah, please.
There's something interesting, because a couple years ago, HubSpot's co-founder published a post on LinkedIn about how he had spent $10 million on that domain name. $10 million he paid, and then 2 months later, I think it was, he sold it for more than he paid. No, and he didn't say at the time who he paid, who bought it or anything like that, but it seems as though the person who bought it was Sam Altman, OpenAI, whatever. So like someone paid a lot of money so that they can redirect chat.com to ChatGPT, which honestly like makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
But now you know why they had to go raise $6.5 billion, because domain names are getting very expensive, it seems.
Name pollution. It's out there. I'll link this. This is the LinkedIn post from Dharmesh Shah. He says, 2 months ago, I bought chat.com for $10 million plus.
Yeah. I mean, it's not entirely clear if it's possible that he sold it and then someone else flipped it to Sam Altman or to
Right.
OpenAI. I don't know, like because if they bought it a year ago, why did they wait this long? So I don't know. We don't know all the details. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. But all I'm saying is we know that OpenAI paid more than $10 million for that domain.
Right. Which is wild.
Bananas.
I thought about buying Steven.com for a lot of money, but there's no reason for that. There's no reason for that. So, all right, one of the quick news. Last week, this is right after, I think we recorded last week's episode, but Apple acquired Pixelmator. I use Pixelmator for all my image editing needs on the Mac. I use Pixelmator on my iPad, and it's an incredible app. It's won several Apple Design Awards, and now Apple has acquired it. And just a short little blog post from Pixelmator saying, Apple's done it. Unclear what will happen to it. And so, I'm of two minds on this, because you can look back at different acquisitions. If you remember, years ago, Apple actually acquired Logic, and that became Logic Pro, Apple's app. Workflow, the app, became Shortcuts. Thumbs up on that acquisition, because Shortcuts has come a long way and has more access to Apple's like hardware and features because it's a first-party app. So that's cool. Apple also acquired Dark Sky and incorporated it into the Weather app, so that did not stay as a standalone app. It's just part of Weather. I think Weather got better. I still miss Dark Sky a little bit. So, we'll have to say about that. And in light of this acquisition, if you remember Aperture, which I still have nostalgia for, was Apple's Pro photo editing app, which disappeared. So I'm curious. Oh, and was Final Cut Pro acquired too?
Yep. So Final Cut was originally made by, I think it was MacRumors, and there was no market for it. Like everyone who was using nonlinear editing at the time was using Avid, right? And so like they couldn't figure out like a way to like sell it and stuff. And so Apple bought it from. They actually, it wasn't the entire app at the time. It was like their. Can't remember what it's called. Key something. But anyway,
Keystone editing.
Key Grip. That's what it was. They bought Key Grip from Macromedia, and they renamed it to Final Cut, and they turned it into an actual thing. I actually was at the NAB show back in, I can't even remember what year it was. Like it was like right after high school. I was in college, so like 98 or something like that. Anyway, and there's a demo. I saw a demo of it very, 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 very early on, and I didn't end up using it for a while after that. But like Final Cut was like a revolutionary app at the time, because you used to have like these massive Avid systems, which required you to like have, like they used to have like the dongles, like you had to plug in like a hardware dongle that like synced with. Actually, Avid still does that. If you buy an Avid like Pro audio workstation, you have to have a license key that matches a physical. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And in Final Cut, you could run it on a PowerBook. It was mind blowing.
That was my foray into video editing. I used iMovie when I got my first G4 PowerBook, and then I got Final Cut Express, because there was like Final Cut Pro, which was like came in this massive cardboard box, and I couldn't afford it, but I could afford Final Cut Express. I bought it, I think, for like $150, and that sent me on the road that I'm in today. But anyway, so Apple's acquisitions, they've gone different ways. Sometimes they become standalone first-party Apple apps like Shortcuts. Sometimes features get merged into Apple's apps like Weather. And what will happen to Pixelmator? I'm curious with your pontification of what might happen. A lot of people feel like Apple will just keep it. It'll just become an Apple app. Maybe rebranded, maybe not. But it will be Apple's like pro photography editing app, or pro image editing app. And will finally like be competing with Adobe on this front. I think another possibility, I think this is less likely, is that Apple just kind of tries to merge some of those features into the Photos app and tries to make the Photos app more popular. I think that's less likely. I think it'll be separate, at least for a while. But I don't know. What do you think? Is going to happen?
All right. I have thoughts. I'm just going to keep them brief. I lived through the Lightroom versus Aperture wars. I was a professional photographer at the time, and I was an Aperture person. And I was in the extraordinarily small minority. Let's just say that. Like, there's a reason that they got rid of Aperture. I would go to like WPPI, which is a huge like wedding and portrait photographers convention in Vegas, and Apple there would be a couple of their people there, but there was no booth. Like, there's no booth. Like, you couldn't just go talk to the Aperture people. because Lightroom was just everywhere, right? Everyone was using Lightroom. I even participated in a shootout type thing with a Lightroom. Now, one of the reasons why Lightroom sort of won that battle is it was more portable. You could actually outsource your photo editing to someone, and they could just send you back some like a catalog of like XF files or whatever, like, and you could just merge the two things where you couldn't do that with Aperture. That was one of the reasons. I think that this acquisition goes one of three ways you kind of described. It could go dark weather, which would be terrible. That would be unfortunate. Like, it would be bad, right? Like,
so
the weather app is somewhat
dark weather. You miss dark weather or dark?
I thought it was a great app. I mean, I love Carrot, so I'm fine with the fact that dark weather doesn't exist. But dark weather at the time was
dark
like
sky.
Dark sky.
We're gonna get so many comments. Dark weather.
Well, that's how I feel about the weather app now.
Okay,
it's dark weather.
Exactly.
Dark sky. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Or it could go like the way of like what Final Cut and like Logic, where they bought something and they kept it as a full featured developed app. I think the most likely acquisition, because if you like just think about some of their big acquisitions that they've had in the past, right? Like Beats just kind of lives on as its own thing. No, like really,
That's true.
The real reason they bought Beats though was they turned Beats' app into the music app. But other than that, there's no Beats streaming app anymore. So Apple doesn't really buy things for the sake of just. I think the reason that Beats continues to live on as a brand is it was a huge, like, hardware business at the time. Like, that's really the only reason.
It has cachet too, like the Beats brand,
and it has an audience. And it's like, well, we don't have to build this audience. We just have to keep giving them things to give us money for, and so that they did that. I don't think that there's any question that what's going to end up happening is the features and technology from Pixelmator are just going to end up in the Photos app. Like that's.
Oh no! Don't
Steven,
say that.
Be honest though. Like think about it. They're not re-releasing Aperture. There's zero chance that they're ever going to release a Pro app because that market there's no room in that market. There is zero room for a Pro photo app that pro photographers would use. There are a lot of prosumer photographers that would be like something more than photos, but guess what? The new Lightroom is that app. That is that app as opposed to Lightroom Classic, right? Like I actually most of the time just use the new Lightroom. I don't even know what they call it. Like they just call it Lightroom and then there's Lightroom Classic, I guess. But Steven, like I don't think that
we're gonna make.
You got to use your head, not just your heart, Steven.
We're gonna make this wager right now. I don't know how long it's gonna take, and we'll see. I don't know how many years down the road this will be. But we'll have to come back to this episode, mark it down, and see who was right.
Episode 48. Okay.
I am saying they are not going to merge it into the Photos app. I think they're going to keep it separate. And I think that Apple is going to make the play to have a professional photo app again. I don't think they'll bring back the Aperture name, but I think it will be a separate app. And if you look at their strategy, like look at the iPad. Everyone asked for Pro apps on the iPad. And we don't talk about it as much anymore, but Apple did give it to us. We got Logic Pro on the iPad. We have Final Cut on the iPad, even Final Cut Camera. Whether or not how many people are using it or whatever, I think Apple wants to have that, because that is the missing piece, like in the puzzle. Like when it comes to, you have video editing, Final Cut, you have audio, you have Logic, you don't have the photo editing app on there. And I don't think they want to complicate the stock Photos app that much because it's still mass appeal. I mean, look at the redesign of Photos on the iPhone now. Like, you cannot shove professional tools into how that app currently functions, which is still, I'm just not crazy about it. I say it's going to be a separate app. It's going to be Apple's professional photo app, and we'll see if it sticks the Pixelmator name or not, but it's going to be separate.
Okay, I didn't think this would be the most controversial part of our conversation today or longest, so I'll try to, but can you think of an example where they've done this, where they have had a app in a space, they acquired some technology, and they just kept that and left it alone? Because Logic and Final Cut don't count because they did have iMovie, but the difference with Logic, and they had GarageBand, but the difference with Logic and Final Cut is they were filling a pro market that was inaccessible to most people. Because again, an Avid system, I don't know what you had to have $15,000, $25,000 to have an Avid system, right? Like, I mean, for real. With Final Cut, all you had to do is have a PowerBook and a super drive, and you could use iDVD, and you could make your thing. Like,
I cannot iDVD so much,
but I can't think of another market because that does not exist in Photos. The above consumer but accessible to anyone market exists, and it's Lightroom or Pixelmator. That's fine, or Photomator, excuse me.
Right.
But I cannot think of an example where they bought a parallel technology, and then they kept it as a standalone. Like they didn't keep the Beats app as a standalone next to iTunes.
Think, well, it might not be like they didn't have a parallel, but I do think the workflow app into Shortcuts.
They didn't have anything. They had Automator. Like,
I know they didn't have anything, but they saw value in it, even though it was pretty niche. Like Shortcuts is not widespread. Like it's not like most people use it, but they did choose to keep it a separate thing and continue to develop it, even though it's really buggy and they don't add a lot of actions a lot of times. Like it is still there. And you look at Apple Intelligence and the push there, I think Apple would love to say, we have Apple Intelligence features for video. And, they talked a little bit about this like in the Final Cut for iPad where you can like write on it and it will animate for you. We saw in the Mac Mini announcement video that the transcription for captions is coming. They might be talking about AI features in Final Cut. I think they would love to say we also have Apple Intelligence for your photos and for image editing, whether it's content aware fill type stuff or just generation, like whatever generation while you're editing. So I'm just going to say I think they're going to keep it separate. I think they're going to make a play for pro photos.
I think Pixelmator maybe, Photomator definitely not.
Well, and maybe it's just one thing. Like it could just be one thing.
But I mean, those two, Pixelmator is a competitor to Photoshop. Photomator is Lightroom Aperture Photos. Like, I don't think there's any way Photomator continues to exist. Pixelmator maybe, because Pixelmator is just a Photoshop, and Apple doesn't have a Photoshop, but they're not going to take the Pixelmator Photoshop features and put them into Photos because
right.
that would be absurd.
I wasn't thinking about Photomator, I guess. I'm thinking more just Pixelmators in my head because that's the app I use to like make thumbnails and stuff, and that I could see them keeping it like a first party, but then also like Photoshop.
I just want to be clear, that's not a pro photo app. That's a graphic design app.
Right. Okay.
And I don't think they want to compete with. I don't know. I think it's.
Don't people bring photos into Photoshop though? I mean, the photo is literally in the name. Like,
do people bring photo? That's a question.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean,
I know Lightroom is a thing, but
if you're a pro photographer, I feel pretty confident saying this, that you are only using Photoshop for the client that you hate who says, "Could you please take out the braces?" or "Could you please do this thing?"
I see.
Unless you're doing actual design work where you need layers. Like otherwise there's really no reason to go into Photoshop because Lightroom has like AI generative remove tool. Like I almost did it this morning on a cable hanging down, and then I realized it'll actually take me less time to just move the cable and retake the photo, which is what I did.
All right, well, Jason, I would like you, if you think this is worthwhile, an Inc.com article arguing about what Apple is going to do with Pixelmator. Because I am curious.
Thought piece on Apple and Pixelmator. Okay.
I love Pixelmator Pro on my Mac, and I just don't want anything to happen to it. I don't want it to go away. I think that's what I'm really speaking from. But
okay.
Anyway, okay, that was fun. All right, want to hear about your 3-in-1 charger? Very quickly, I just want to mention that we had a listener send me this article. This is from Stuart Whittingham. And he said a radio station attempted to replace their host with AI, and it ended in disaster. And so I just want to say, Jason, we have several years.
How did they not see that coming?
We have several good years of hosting this podcast left before AI replaces us. So thank you, Stuart, for sending that. I feel safe. Now, personal tech. We have talked about 3-in-1 chargers in the past. Jason was not he felt no reason to buy a 3-in-1. You don't need 3-in-1 chargers. And then I sent him a 3-in-1 charger. And I don't know for sure, but it sounds like he's now been converted because he seems to have bought one on his own.
Yeah. I mean,
what happened?
I actually, what I did this week had nothing to do. I mean, you sent me something for the nightstand.
Yeah, I sent you the nightstand.
Thank you. I do use it. Because,
you do use it. Okay, great.
Well, mostly I use it because once I set it up, it was easier to just not take it down, right? Like, let's
less
just be honest.
friction, just leave it.
Yeah, just keep using it.
I get it. I
do notice that some days I wake up and it has not charged the AirPods because it's a little finicky. And if you don't line it up quite right on that particular one, the light glows like real bright. Like it's trying to wake you up to let you know your AirPods are not charging, which is not a thing I actually care that much about. Like I'd rather sleep. I can plug them into a cord in the morning for 5 minutes and then I'm good for the day.
I would just a side note.
Yeah.
I review a lot of 3-in-1 and now even 4-in-1. I don't know if you saw that video, Jason, but I have a 4-in-1 charger, which can charge your iPhone, your Apple Watch, your AirPods, and another phone because there's a fourth cheat charger. But I will say the AirPods, there's some 3-in-1 chargers that has a little tiny magnet that will actually align the AirPods on the charger. Those are really the best. Like Anker's 3-in-1 has one. I think it's Amigot. Theirs has like a little magnet that aligns the AirPods. For some reason, most of them don't, even from like the bigger brands like Belkin or whatever. Everybody needs to have the little magnet that aligns the AirPods. That's all I'm going to say. Okay.
I hard agree. Okay. Have a problem though, which is you can't see my desk right now, but I have an addiction to adapters or charging adapters things. I don't know why. I just buy them. And so I bought a 3-in-1 charger, but before our listeners get super excited, I found this. I'm going on a trip next week. I was getting my chargers together.
Right.
I have to get my universal, ones with the weird things. And I even have an Anchor one. This is obviously not. This is just
right.
Apple adapter with the prongs on it. But I have one of the Anchor ones that has a multiple thing, and it's great. And I love it because I take it when I go overseas. But then, I carry around with me various versions of these like Anchor charging things. And you're going to get real distracted by this, but I went ahead to Nomad and I bought one of these backs.
Oh,
right?
the backs.
Yeah, I love it. It's fantastic. While I was there, I was like, oh, you have a 65-watt charger that has 2 USB-Cs, and I've been using this Anchor charger with 2 USB-Cs and 1 USB-A, and I'm like, that's pointless. Why do I don't even carry a USB-A cable anymore? So that's dumb. I should just get rid of this thing. But while I was there, Steven,
Yes.
I found this, which is a USB-C 65-watt charger, dual,
Yes.
and on the top, it has an Apple Watch charger. So this is my 3-in-1 charger that I can take with me, and I can I can't actually take it on this trip because it's US only, but I can plug it in. I can plug in my watch and my phone with cables.
Right.
And then I can charge my Apple Watch on the top of it. Although it's not going to work at most hotels because most hotels you have to plug them in like down or whatever. Yeah. So I don't know. True. I just really thought that this was fun.
It's cool
to have.
Yeah, it's cool.
And Steven, I have so many of these things. Just like, why do I have? That's not even. I can't even pick them all up. So I bought a 3-in-1 charger. It's not what you think.
No, I love it. I think I actually have a couple 3-in-1. I'm going to send you another one.
Oh my goodness!
But this one will be for travel. This is like one of the fold-out 3-in-1s. So it's compact, but you can do Apple Watch, AirPods, and your iPhone, and it folds nicely. And you can let me know what you think about that.
Is it the 12 South that has the butterfly one?
I reviewed the butterfly, and the Native Union has one, and Anchor has one. I reviewed all those. I honestly like them all less than the MagSafe Duo because they're very floppy. Like the little connector between them is real floppy, and I just don't prefer it. So I like just kind of they're slightly larger, but they're more sturdy 3-in-1s or 2-in-1s. And I'll show you let's see if I can reach it without unplugging my headphones. I'm reaching for my backpack here. I'm going to go to my pocket. You have a ASMR of me unzipping my backpack. This is what I use when I travel now. It's the Belkin 2-in-1, and you actually show me the picture of how this is supposed to go.
How you're supposed to use it, yeah.
You do a little triangle, and then you can charge your iPhone here, even in standby mode, and then the Apple Watch there. And, you can charge your AirPods Pro on either of those too. So this is what I use when I travel. But Belkin has a 3-in-1 version of this, where it stacks like this, but it has one more little pad that comes out for a dedicated AirPods thing. So, nice. I'll send you that one because I'm not using it, and you can see what you think.
Great. Can't wait.
So Jason bought a 3-in-1. That's the bottom line. All right, we're going to go record a bonus episode, and I want to get Jason's take on new media versus old media during the election.
Oh boy, we're doing this.
That's why we're doing it in the bonus episode. So if you listen, our bonus episodes are getting fun, and you should really go take a listen. So if you want to listen to the bonus episode and get an ad-free version of the full episode, you can go to primarytech.fm, click bonus episodes, and support us there. That's why I'm memberful, and you get the chapters, and you get the chapter artwork and all that. Or if you just like the ease of supporting the show directly in Apple Podcasts, you can do that as well. You still get all the bonus episodes, you get ad-free, but you don't get the chapters in the Apple Podcast ad-free version. It's not my fault. They stripped my chapters out for some reason. So if you want all the good stuff, you can go to primarytech.fm, click bonus episodes, and I'm just looking back at our bonus episodes. I mean, this is good stuff. You should go over there and listen. But also, you can give us a 5-star rating in Apple Podcasts, and we would appreciate that. You get a shout-out at the top of the show. And of course, we just appreciate you listening. Thanks for watching. You can go subscribe to the YouTube channel. That link is in the show notes as well. And our thanks to the Data Dialogues podcast and Audio Hijack for sponsoring this episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time.